Oh my goodness. I cannot. I cannot. We're not even starting the episode yet. I'm already excited. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh my god. Wow. I was going to save my breakdown video for this episode to the very end of the season. So I was going to do a breakdown video of episodes 4, 5, and 6 like I did for 1, 2, and 3. But I just couldn't wait because this episode was just too crazy and too jam-packed. Before we get into it, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. Welcome back if you are not new. My name is Danisha. Here I talk about all things Marvel. So without further ado, let's hop straight into this video. So I will be talking about the 4th episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The title of this episode was The World is Watching. And let me tell you, the world was definitely watching. This was a crazy episode, but I feel like they should have titled it brutal. I'm gonna just like run through this breakdown really quick, and then I'm gonna go back and address some of the points that I wanted to address about this episode. We pick up where we left off in the previous episode with Io, and also I apologize. I said Ayo in the last episode. We start this episode off with a shot of Wakanda 6 years ago. 6 years ago in this version of the MCU would be 2018. 2018 was shortly before Thanos happened and shortly before the blip. But yeah, we have a shot of Io and Bucky on the outskirts of Wakanda, and Io is giving Bucky the final test to see if he reverts back to his Winter Soldier form. And Bucky really starts to fight his mind in this part. Like, Io is reciting those same words that Hydra has recited to him over the past decades. He's also getting flashback of his past and everything that he's done in his past as the Winter Soldier. And then by the end of it, that's when Io says that you are free, and Bucky just breaks down crying. He's happy. He's filled with so much joy. And I just want to say, like, Sebastian Stan's acting in this scene was phenomenal. That man deserves an Emmy for sure. Like, his acting was impeccable in the scene. It was so believable, so powerful, so impactful. It really touched my spirit, honestly. Then we fast forward to the present day where Io and Bucky is having a quick discussion as to why he let Zemo out of jail, and he basically said that Zemo is a means to an end, which has been a very common theme since episode 3. But Io just gives him like, look, you have 8 hours and we're coming for Zemo. So Bucky lets Sam and Zemo know that the Dora Milaje is coming for him, and we go through the episode with them trying to figure out how they're going to take down the Flag Smashers. And Sam recognizes that Carly Morgenthau is a young girl and she still has a chance to change her mind, even though she's doing some very questionable things. This episode is just one big giant debacle of who is actually worthy of the Super Soldier Serum and who deserves to be Captain America and who deserves to be on top. Who is the supreme power in this episode? Really, we started diving into like who is actually the real villain in this episode and who is the real villain of this series, which I thought was really interesting. And we get a scene of Carly at the funeral for Danya, and we also cut to Sam and Carly having a brief conversation about her actions and how Sam basically supports what she's doing, but he doesn't like how she's doing. And then we have this whole like fight scene between Jon Walker and everybody else, and Zemo winds up shooting Carly, but he doesn't kill her. He destroys most of the Super Soldier Serums, and then Jon Walker manages to get his hand on the last one, which also confirms that Jon did not take the Super Soldier Serum. He was just very well trained in the war. He's a very well trained soldier. Like I said in my previous episode, I don't think you need to have superpowers in order to be super strong and really powerful. But yes, he takes the serum, and by the end of the episode, he loses his mind completely, especially after Lamar Hopkins dies. He kills one of the Flag Smashers as a result of that. The Dora Milaje do come back in this episode to try and get Zemo, but it winds up being a failed attempt because Zemo El Chapos everybody, as Sam refers, and he escapes. And so by the end of this episode, we don't know where Zemo is. I just wanted to run through that, but I'm going to go back and touch on a few things, some major points that happened in this episode. I have my notes, so if I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking down at my notes. Okay, so I want to go back to the scene in the beginning of the episode where Sam, Zemo, and Bucky start talking about this whole idea of supremacy, this whole idea of what it means to be a supremacist. And by Zemo's definition, he feels like that anybody who comes in contact with the Super Soldier Serum is bound to be on the path of supremacy. meaning they will always feel like and believe that they are superior, they are the higher power. And he briefly touched on the events of Ultron. He had touched on everything that happened in Sokovia. He even addressed the Avengers, but Sam and Bucky quickly knocked that down because he's like, look, they're not supremacists, the Avengers are not supremacists, they're just trying to do what's right. But in doing so, supremacists still believe they are the ones that know better. They still want to have control over everything and ultimately control the fate of everybody's lives. And Zemo is basically trying to get at, like, whether they're good, whether they're bad. A lot of these superpowered beings still has a slight idea of supremacy. Bucky, of course, interrupts him with well, Steve Rogers didn't get corrupted, which he didn't. Steve Rogers remained who he was. If you guys reference back to the first Captain America, Steve was talking to Dr. Erskine very early on before the experiment, and Dr. Erskine basically said to him, like, the serum only enhances who you are on the inside. So if you are good, you're going to be great. If you're bad, you're going to be worse. And that's exactly what happened to Red Skull, aka Johann Schmidt. And you can say to an extent it kind of did that to Bucky, because Bucky didn't necessarily change. Bucky also in the first Captain America got a version of the super soldier serum, but I'm going to address that in a different video. But it didn't change him. It didn't change him until Hydra started experimenting on him and brainwashing. I also want you guys to notice Carly in this episode, and just Carly throughout the entire season. One thing I've noticed is that Carly is young. She seems to be the leader of the Flag Smashers, and she's also the youngest of the Flag Smashers. At least that's what we see. We also see in this episode that she was hiding the extra vials of the super soldier serum in this graveyard with one of the other Flag Smashers who was later on killed in the episode. Notice with Carly throughout the season, she's very scared. She tries to act tough, she tries to act like she has it all together and that she's just this notorious leader. You can see it in her face in certain scenes that she's very scared, and she's still very young and she doesn't really know what she's doing. She feels like she knows what she's doing, and she feels like she has been chosen to take the serum, which is why she's putting all this responsibility on herself, not realizing that she wasn't chosen. She made a conscious choice to do everything that she chose to do, but she's not recognizing the repercussions of her actions. In the scene specifically when Carly and everybody else is at the funeral for Danya, once Sam came to her funeral and she seen Sam looking down at her, she got terrified. She got so scared in that moment because she felt like her whole world was about to collapse. But I'm like, you're a super soldier, you shouldn't be scared, like you can take them. Like, you know. But she was terrified, and that happened even in episode 2, I believe, when we first got a little glimpse of who the power broker was, and when he first texted Carly and told her that he's going to find her and kill her. She was terrified. Which brings me to my next point, which is I also want you guys to pay close attention to Lamar Hopkins in this episode. Lamar is Jon Walker's buddy, aka Battlestar, and he has been by Jon Walker's side ever since we first got introduced to Jon Walker. But I really want you to notice Lamar Hopkins' mannerisms in this episode. Especially when Jon, Lamar, Sam, Bucky, and Zemo all meet up. Sam quickly says that they know where the funeral is and they're going to go see her, and Sam is going to talk to Carly alone, but Jon jumps in and he's just like, no, I disagree with this. Lamar says that there's going to be a lot of civilians there, which means there's a high risk of casualties, and then Jon quickly jumps in and says, yes, that's why we need to go in and attack quick. Sam is just like, no, I used to counsel soldiers, I used to counsel veterans in the war, so I know how to deal with trauma, I know how to talk to people, I know how to reason with people. And in that moment, you can see Lamar's face switch.
I know, and I know those soldiers, which is why I know this is a bad idea.
Wait, Jon. If you can talk her down, it might be worth a try.
He convinced Jon to let Sam go talk to Carly alone. In that moment, I thought that was very interesting because it really just showed just how much of a grounded character Lamar is to Jon, and just how much of a voice of reason he is to Jon. Another scene I want you guys to focus on is when, after the fact, when Carly gets away and Jon quickly snatches the last vial of the super soldier serum and they all go back to where Zemo is staying at. Again, Jon comes in very aggressive, very territorial, acts like he's running everything and he really doesn't. And Sam quickly checks him. And when Jon is just like, look, how do you want this conversation to go? You can notice again Lamar's face completely switches. He is side-eyeing the crap out of Jon right now. He's just like, what? Like, what are you doing right now? Why do you want to fight so much? And that's when the Dora Milaje steps in and they pretty much beat everybody up in this scene. And I thought it was just so cool that Io gave Bucky the 1-2 piece combo and she disarmed Bucky literally. After Lamar got his butt whooped and Sam got his butt whooped, the Dora Milaje left because they were there to get Zemo, but Zemo dipped. Io was very mad at Bucky, and I really hope that before the season is over with, we get to see Bucky reconcile with the Wakandans, specifically Io, because I would hate for this season to end and Bucky doesn't resolve that issue, and the Wakandans just going around hating Bucky for forever, and then maybe come back and take his arm permanently. I don't know. Jon was just left on the ground feeling defeated, and he says to Lamar that they weren't even super soldiers. And I'm not gonna lie, I felt really bad for Jon. Hear me out. I felt bad for Jon because he is a victim. I will touch back on that at the end of the video. But yeah, in this scene, we also again pay attention to Lamar's face. Lamar looks at Jon in so much concern because he's worried about him now. We see Jon is wearing his insecurities on his sleeve at this point. He's doubting himself as a soldier. He's doubting himself as Captain America. He's doubting his abilities to serve his country and to be the best Captain America he can be, as he said in episode 2. And we also get a short conversation between these two where they are briefly discussing everything that happened when they were in Afghanistan. And that if they had the super soldier serum, they could have saved a lot more lives. A question that was asked twice in this episode, which is, if you had the chance to take the super soldier serum, would you take it? The question was asked earlier by Zemo to Sam. Zemo asked that if you were given the chance to take it, would you take it? And he said no. Whereas, fast forward to the scene with Lamar and Jon, where Jon asked Lamar if he would take the serum. Lamar, without hesitation, said, hell yes. Jon didn't answer. He was just kind of hesitant. I guess he wanted to see what Lamar would say to kind of get a second opinion as to whether or not he should do it, even though Lamar has no idea that Jon has the serum. Let's also go back into the scene where they are all waiting for Sam to finish talking to Carly after the funeral. Jon is very impatient in the scene. He only gives Sam 10 minutes to talk to Carly before he goes in and barges in and tries to attack her. And while everybody is waiting after the 10 minutes is up, Jon is just like, look, I'm done waiting. He tries to barge in, but Bucky is there at the door to stop him, and that's when Jon says to Bucky that his partner needs backup, and that if he really wants his blood on his hands, referring to Sam's blood on Bucky's hands. In this moment, I noticed two things. The first one is Bucky is still very vulnerable, even though he's not under Hydra's control anymore, and he is no longer the Winter Soldier, and he's very much still feeling this guilt of his past actions. So Jon recognizes this, and he tries to manipulate Bucky into letting him in to attack Carly, which he succeeds at. The second thing I noticed is Jon was alluding to Lamar's death later in the episode, and how Lamar's blood is going to be on Jon's hands. The same thing he was saying to Bucky is the same thing that happened by the end of the episode. So I thought that was very clever of the writers to put that line and to do that. I don't know if that was their intention, but that's how I interpreted it, and I thought that was just brilliant. The final battle happens where Carly, the Flag Smashers, Sam, Bucky, Jon, and Lamar are all fighting, going at it, and then
Lamar.
Yeah.
Y'all fucked up. You know they fucked up.
Oh, look at, they all paused too.
Then Lamar dies. He's punched into a pillar by Carly, and Carly didn't mean to kill him. I think she just wanted to get him off of her because they were trying to kill Jon in that moment. They were trying to stab him. That's when Jon literally loses his mind. He kills one of the Flag Smashers, the Flag Smasher that we seen earlier in the episode talking to Carly. We seen him die at the hands of Captain America, the very person that he admired growing up. It wasn't necessarily that particular Captain America, but still, to get killed by the one person that you admired, crazy way to die. Jon killed this Flag Smasher with the shield. In front of everybody. Everybody was watching, and that's how we got the theme of the episode, which is the world is watching. And boy, was they watching. I was just distraught after watching that scene. I was like, wow, like Disney really took it there. Disney really took it there. They didn't have to take it there, but they did. I didn't think it was going to get this brutal. I didn't think it was going to get this rough. I feel like the US government might try to sweep this under the rug. With the history of the MCU and the government, and just in real life, the government tries to sweep a lot of terrible things under the rug and try to make it seem like it wasn't as bad as it is. Make it seem like Jon did a good thing, because earlier in the episode, the Flag Smashers were called terrorists. So the US government could look at this and be like, well, he's just doing his job and getting rid of the Flag Smashers. The shot of him with the shield at the end, like, one thing I really love about the show is the camera angles, the shots, the close-ups. I love how it's being presented to the MCU currently, and it's very, very like realistic to like everything that's going on in the world, and how police brutality is still very real, and how so many people, so many African Americans are getting killed in front of the entire world, and all we're doing is just watching it. These people of authority feel like they have power. They are supremacists. They feel like they are supreme authority and they can do whatever they want and not get punished for it. But I want to end this off with addressing my final point with, despite everything that I just said and how I may feel about Jon Walker and how everybody else feels about Jon Walker, I don't feel like he is the real villain of the show. Like, of course, the Power Broker is probably the real villain of the show. Yes, what he did was horribly wrong, of course, but I feel like he is also the victim. He is one of many victims the government used to exploit in order to have the supreme power. The government is the real supremacist. In real life and on the show, the government is the real supremacist. They always want to have control over what we as the people do, what we can and cannot do. The US always wants to flex their power in other countries. Is very, very prevalent throughout the show and the MCU and in real life. They take advantage of these soldiers of war in order to place fear in other countries around the world. Use them as their puppets, hence why Steve rebelled against them in Captain America Winter Soldier and in Captain America Civil War. Let me know what you guys think about this episode in the comment section. Please let me know what you guys think. I would love to know, because I personally have a few thoughts. I feel like the Flag Smashers may not survive the end of the season. I don't think it's necessary for their storyline to continue on in the background while we have all these other major MCU storylines happening. I don't think it's necessary for there to still be super soldiers running around. At least not the ones that we see on the show. Maybe Carly may survive. Jon Walker may or may not become US agent. He may become some type of anti-hero. I'm hoping that we finally find out who the Power Broker is. The writers of the show says that episode 5 is going to be a major cliffhanger. It's going to be the one that makes us cry. There's going to be a cameo by a major actor. But other than that, if you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on my social media, and I will see you guys in my next video. Peace.